Hey, team players, and welcome back. Dude, this is going to be pretty much the playoff push. A lot of people are hitting their trade deadlines. This is time to make all of the magic happen. Get these teams ready to win either your bye, get into the playoffs, and then make some damage once it happens. That's what we're going through today, and here it comes, baby. So, yeah, you guys are getting a little bit different way here today where you're getting me actually standing instead of just getting it. On Monday, you didn't get Bob. Now you're getting me. And, Bob, why is this thing not showing your pretty face here, man?
I have no idea. I wish I knew because I'm going to start clicking buttons.
Goes.
And Joe knows when I start to click buttons, it's never a good thing. All right, guys.
So that's what you're going to be charging them all day. This is the best thing in the world. Just make sure you click in, put the comment on the screen, and we'll be great.
Yeah, and like scheduling wise, right, is that this show next Monday, and then we might have to come at you a little bit early next week because of the Thanksgiving holiday. So this might be the next Thursday show. We won't be there until December, so that'd be pretty interesting. So a couple of things to just keep in mind as we go through this week specifically is that trade deadlines either have passed or are about to pass. So we want to get in those matchups and see which ones we can capitalize on.
It should be allowed to the playoffs. I vote for it every year.
We want to capitalize on some good matchups. We want to understand though too that players with bad matchups, they have like that stank hanging over their head right now in trade conversations. So it is going to be harder to move certain players than others. So let's get into the questions here. We have a bunch here from Jason to start out with. We see Adam, we see Abraham, we see Michael and Craig in the chat. We appreciate all you guys being with us today.
Yeah, guys, once it goes live, send your questions in. We make it awesome.
Jason, let's hit the ground running here. Start one this week.
We love how many you sent us before we started, by the way.
30%, Trevor or Joe Burrow. Now, I'm just going to start there with Joe Burrow and say that I am not confident with Joe Burrow this week. Having such a significant injury, keeping him out for such a significant period of time, I can only believe that not having Jamar and having that injury, that this tends to lean a little bit more into a Chase Brown game, narratively speaking.
Translates to a loss.
There's a pathway he can do very well, but I don't see anything more than 2 touchdowns for Joe Burrow this week, if that. So he's kind of off the list for that conversation. Yeah. Then we go to the other quarterbacks on this slate, and Jacoby Brissett still won't have Marvin Harrison Jr. this week coming up, but he still will have Michael Wilson and Trey McBride. I think this is an incredible matchup for Jacoby Brissett. Out of those quarterbacks listed there, he's probably the one on my list that I have above the other ones. And I think that Trevor's an interesting play. If you believe that this matchup is going to be competitive to any degree, a comeback Trevor could be interesting if BTJ is healthy. And I think that right now, Brock Purdy, the Carolina Panthers are an interesting matchup for Brock Purdy, but also they can win in so many different ways, and they can give the ball literally to Christian McCaffrey all of those different ways. And Brock Purdy might end up in that same category as Joe Burrow of 2 touchdowns. So I tend to lean Brissett out of this grouping of quarterbacks. And I know that's a little bit of weird to say. Now,
Brissett's the one I'm going with too, Bob. So I totally agree with you there.
Now, rest of season, I could see if Joe Burrow puts together a good game this week, I could see him as being a guy that you could lean on. Over the next couple weeks, certainly considering the matchups. Again, Joe Burrow was a guy that a lot of people were going after in best ball drafts pretty early, knowing that the matchups are going to be pretty good. So I think that you would have to lean on Joe Burrow the rest of the season if he's healthy, and that Brock Purdy is kind of a little bit further down on that list, knowing that, like I said, they can win in lots of different ways. But the one thing about Brock Purdy and the one thing about Joe Burrow that is a little bit different than Bo Nix is that neither of those defenses can beat you. So they are going to have opportunities to continue to pass the ball. And I think that's a very good thing when you consider those quarterbacks. Should I drop Rashard White?
Guys, programming note to let you all know. I personally have a hard out here at 5. So we're going to have to go through these questions a little bit faster than we normally do because we are still going to answer everyone's questions, but we are going to have to go on a little bit of a speed run.
Should I drop Rachaad White if Bucky is back for Pollard,
Yes.
Knight, Carter, or Isaiah Davis? I think that Rachaad White, whether Bucky is back or not, is a safe drop right now because Sean Tucker overperformed in it, and it is a Sean Tucker overperformance game. But knowing that Bucky's looming, he's not playing this week most likely. But knowing that he's looming, I think it's safe to say that it's okay to drop Bucky.
And also remember, White lost the job this time last year. I mean, they're ready to get rid of him.
Now, in terms of the other guys on this list, I don't really want any of them, but if I were to go with any of them, it would be that Knight Carter combo, because Arizona isn't completely inept at moving the ball. And so that's a bonus. But
yeah, I was saying this the other night, Bob. It's amazing what putting in a significantly below average quarterback is and how an upgrade that is above Kyler Murray.
But with Benson looming, I don't think that any of those guys are really wonderful. This week, Wandale, Shakir, or Sticky Ricky. I believe it also depends, Jason, if who's going to quarterback, if it's going to be Dart or if it's going to be Winston, because that matchup looked a little bit different. Wandale should have gotten a little bit more usage, and that didn't happen. Shakir last week got terrible usage in a game that he should have gotten good usage in. And
6 touchdowns, he got no love.
Ricky Pearsall also most likely zeroed you out as well. So when you look at these guys, these are all kind of, I see why you're contemplating between these guys. Shakir has a slightly better projection, and understanding that Keon Coleman is sitting for another game, and understanding that depending on how Shakir is used, this Houston defense is pretty good. So
what did Coleman do behind the scenes that no one knows about?
Oh, he's missed meetings. He's missed meetings. It's said that he's not a very good teammate, doesn't have a really good work ethic. So that there's reason to believe that's what's going on here.
You can't act like Randy Moss until you've broken the records.
So Ricky Pearsall could be a good play this week. The matchup is good enough, but Shakir's matchup is slightly worse, but they could lean on him a little bit more. We thought that was last week too. So that's all three of these guys are kind of like that mysterious, well, they got to get the volume for them to be relevant kind of play. I think if I were to lean on anybody, assuming Jackson Dart would be healthy this week, it would be Wandale. If there's any inclination that Dart wouldn't play, I think that I'd put it to Ricky Pearsall in a possible comeback game there.
And Bob, that's 100% right, but it also doesn't mean you start Party. You still go back to the quarterback before that.
Since it's handcuff season, which are the three best handcuffs to own right now? Corum, B-Rob, Tootin, Stevenson, Emmanuel Wilson, Knight Carter. I think you got to start with Corum. He's already getting the volume of an RB2, and he's getting RB2 on the team, not RB2 on your fantasy teams.
Yeah.
But when you look at Corum, he's getting the volume, and if Kyron were to hit an injury at any one point in time, Corum would be the next guy up, and I think that he would do pretty well. Now, B-Rob's getting that garbage time looks, and with them having a week 14 bye, I don't think it's relevant to pick up B-Rob because I don't see him as being I don't see them over-relying on B-Rob to the degree that they over-rely on Christian McCaffrey. So I think that he's a good play, but I don't see it as being a play that
he's not with the other three who are obvious answers.
Now,
there's three obvious answers, and B-Rob ain't one of them.
Yeah, Ramondre isn't a play for me either, knowing that at week 14 they have their bye. They could easily go back.
I disagree with that.
Travion has
Ramondre, they could make the number one as soon as he's healthy again because Vrabel's Vrabel.
That's true. But also week 14 bye. So if you do,
I get the week 14 bye part, but at the end of the day, Stevenson might be getting starter look reps if no one ever gets hurt, just because that's what Vrabel does. The exception being Wilson.
So
if Wilson ends up being the starter, Wilson's the best by far of that group.
Yeah. So if Wilson becomes the starter here and Jacobs is dealing with anything that could keep him out for a longer term, Wilson's a nice play because although the Packers offensive line hasn't been great, they do want to run the ball a decent amount. Mm-hmm. And I think that Wilson paints a good picture into that. And then, like I said, I'm a little bit off the Knight Carter bus, and Tootin is good. But Tootin also is dealing with a little bit of health issues right now, and so is Travis Etienne as of yesterday. So for me, it would be Corum, Emmanuel Wilson, Tootin, then Stevenson and B-Rob. But if Emmanuel Wilson is the starter, obviously he gets the.
And my answer is Stevenson and Wilson because they could be starters, followed by Corum.
Is DJ Moore a drop when it comes to that question? I don't. I don't know if I would drop DJ Moore for any of those guys.
I've been telling you to get rid of the Chicago receivers this entire season.
But
yes,
DJ Moore,
get rid of them.
DJ Moore may not be worth having right now, guys. DJ Moore or Shakir this week? Again, a tough question. You heard me just say DJ Moore. You just heard me say DJ Moore might not be worth having. However, they're running into the Steelers this week, and the Steelers played well last week, and we'll have to see if that continues this week.
Shut down Higgins and Chase.
DJ Moore could be an interesting play this week, more so than Khalil Shakir. So I would think that
I think both of them are going to give you sad answers, though.
And I think that I would really lean DJ Moore more than Shakir in that matchup. I just don't like either of them. Yeah. Start running back this week. Is it going to be Tracy for you, Joe, or is it going to be Pacheco?
It's Tracy. He's going to give me something in the catching game, and there's no doubt about that. I'm going with Tracy. Kansas City, they're not done, but they're in trouble.
But the one thing I like about Tracy this week, he got a massive amount of carries last week and the week before, and Singletary got a lot of carries as well. But it's the targets that interest me. Detroit is projecting as a top 3 defense against the run this week. But also keep in mind, that is not always accounting for pass catching running backs at all. So I think that if you're looking for a little bit of love in that department, you might find it in Tyrone Tracy this week. They're offering about 5 targets a game to running backs and around 18 total rushing attempts to running backs. The only thing that you would want to watch out for there is to make sure that Jackson Dart is playing. I haven't heard any news yet this week. I haven't looked at as of the end of this day, so just keep that in mind. And Jason here too, as we get to the bottom of Jason's questions, we're getting there, guys. We got a lot of questions in the chat coming in. We got to everybody: Ravens, Quincy, Riley, CC. We see you all down there. Start 2 this week: Shepard, Yoshivas, Dyke, Iomanor, Coker, Leggett, Tillman, Judy, John Mechie, Burden. Did I miss any bums? I just want 10 points each somehow. I think that John Mechie is interesting, especially when you consider that they are going to have to really – they might not be able to lean on the run as much as they want to in this matchup, and Houston is going to pass the ball a decent amount. And the fact that Buffalo does not have a good pass defense, I think that Mechie is the guy that I would kind of lean on right there. And I think that Shamari Dyke also didn't get a lot of volume, but Ridley got hurt again. I think that Dyke and Mechie are interesting to me. And one of the things about coach speak is that they want to get Burden the ball more. So for me, I would
but I don't think they're going to do it.
I would lean Mechie, Dyke, and Burden over the other guys.
So this goes back to it. DK has been given by the way, everyone on TV calls him DK, but his name's Dyke, so I don't know what's going on with that. So for me, this is a situation where I'm not on the Mechie bus. I have been burnt by him too many times to be investing in him. I love his tape. I love when he's on, but he's almost always a decoy. And he's that kind of guy who's just too far down the depth chart to demand the targets. If you are in any form of a league that gives you return yardage, Dyke's going to give you the edge. But the scary guy on here that I like a lot is Tillman. I like him a lot because I think he's physically the best receiver of the entire group. And wild card Shador.
Joe, I misspoke. I misspoke, Joe. Mechie's on the Jets.
They just traded him.
I forgot about that. I totally missed that. But Mechie is still an interesting play because Tyrod Taylor is going to be the starting quarterback, and they're going to be playing. They're going to be playing against Baltimore, which does give up a decent amount of yards to wide receivers. So I think, although I misspoke and
win that game 49-7,
I do still think that John Mechie out of this group of guys is very interesting to me. Yoshivas is certainly intriguing, especially with Joe Burrow, especially with Chase being out. I'm not writing off Yoshivas. I think that he's like your next one up off of that list if you wanted to. I would stay away from Coker. I'd stay away from Leggett, Tillman, and Judy just because you can't trust Shador and you can't really trust Bryce Young.
I don't know. I think you have to trust Shador. He is coaching for his future.
I'm saying
if he doesn't make Shador look good, he loses his job. It is not straightforward in Cleveland.
I trust Shedeur less than Caleb. I trust Shedeur less than Joe Burrow. And I trust Shedeur.
I agree with that. But they're going to force feed that ball to Tillman and Njoku.
Possibility. It's a possibility. I think the two out of this list that you really don't want to consider would be Shepard and Iomanner.
Yes.
I think the rest.
I would not look at the Carolina ones in Coker or Leggett either. But
Bums on the rise. Joe Burrow's back. I need to drop Danny Jones or Dak for a wide receiver this week. Was aiming Dak because I have Javonte. I have Chase. Should I drop Daniel Jones, Corum, B-Rob, or Algier to get Joe Burrow back? I would drop B-Rob. I would not be dropping Dak or Danny Dimes because you don't know how Burrow's going to play. Like I said earlier in that show, he projects well, but you also want to keep your options open here. And if you had to drop one of them, I would rather drop B-Rob there to keep my options open in case.
And Jason, I think that's the answer I gave you on Monday as well.
And we answered this one here, Jason, earlier in the show. We answered that one there. It seems like they just
Jason, did you come in both feeds? By the way, we love everyone who's watching us both vertically and horizontally.
Yeah, we have 2 lives up. So one is vertical, one is horizontal, one is the regular, one is on the phones. We're trying something a little bit new so that we get the audience on the phone. You might be traveling, you might be at work, et cetera, et cetera. We appreciate
home, listen to us.
Keep right up, baby. If you have a question, please ask. We do answer all questions here at Local Football Flavor. If you don't hear your answer right away, feel free to watch us on a replay. Craig here. Does Woody Marks have better upside this week than Ashton Genty or Judkins? I'm not sure who to bench this week. So let me phrase this way. I think Woody Marks on a week-to-week basis has better upside than Ashton Genty, period. Yeah. There are only a couple of matchups that I absolutely would want to capitalize on for Genty. One of them was last week, but we know that Quinnen Williams came to Dallas, and we know that stopping that run was going to be their first priority, and they did that. And Genty had a terrible game. That
was his last hope.
When we look at Woody Marks, Buffalo is not good at stopping the pass, not good at stopping the run. So the one thing that you have to think about is that while this is an incredible matchup for Woody Marks, he can let you down even in a good matchup. Last week, he only had 44 yards against a Tennessee defense that he should have really ate against. So
that was a weird game watching that again.
And that also happened to Kamani Vidal the week before as well. So when you look at it,
Tennessee might be having a run defense. That I think
maybe Tennessee is looking a little bit better. The other question that you asked here in a way is about Judkins. Now, the problem with Quinshon Judkins is not about volume. He is going to get his share of volume. The problem with Quinshon Judkins is that we have not seen him score a touchdown since the Miami game. And you see his numbers, what it looks like since that Miami game. And it is almost as if it's not trustworthy enough. So for me, because
I still trust Judkins.
I still trust Judkins overall, guys. So I'm not saying that I would want to bench Judkins right now, but I do think that Woody Marks projects better in terms of getting a touchdown this week than either of the other two.
Yeah, so Craig, I would go with Judkins and Marks if this is a pick 2. And the reason is very similar for both of them. They're going to have to protect Shedeur, and they're going to do it by handing the ball. And defensive head coaches hand the ball off more, especially when they're facing a guy who just scored 6 touchdowns.
Abraham, I traded Hampton for Kittle, win or loss. I have Cook, Genty, Aaron Jones, Sharps as my running backs. My previous tight end was Goddard. I wouldn't necessarily say this is a win or a loss. I'm kind of neutral on this, Abraham, because I don't think that the matchups for your running backs are anything other than Genty in week 17 with the Giants are anything that's like really to capitalize on to say like, oh, trading away Hampton, because Hampton does have projects as some good matchups in the future as well. And when he comes back, he should assume the mantle that he had before he left. Now with Kittle, though, Kittle's a total W here because Purdy loves George Kittle. And while the volume might not always go in George Kittle's way, and while George Kittle is a fantastic blocker, he is always going to be on the field. So there's always the opportunity for him to get volume. So I don't think that Goddard was a bad piece to have. So would I have made this trade? I wouldn't have, and I'm very neutral about it because I do think that Kittle is a great asset to have, but I'm kind of bummed on losing out. You held Hampton this long, and for me, I think I would have just kept on holding him, and that Kittle wasn't a good enough return for me.
I agree the same way, but overall, I think you're going to get some W's out of that.
So when I look at your whole team and I see Cook, Genty, Herbie, Jason, Nico, Kittle,
basically what you did there is you put yourself relying upon Genty. And if Genty pans out, you're going to win. But I would much rather have the extra running back than the extra tight end. So I agree with Bob. I don't necessarily think you got fleeced or anything, but I personally would not have done that trade.
Quick hit here. And Abraham, I do like the rest of your team. I think the quarterbacks you have are great. The bench you have is great, and the wide receivers are stellar. So I think you do have a lot of wins still left to go here. Would you trade away Rice and Sharps for Henderson and Igbuka? I would. And here's the reason why.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just on the surface, right, is that Henderson, even if they decide to continue to start if they start Stevenson, the issue that they have is that now the fans are going to start to clamor for him.
Yeah, the genie literally ran out of the bottle.
Because now they're winning. Henderson looks great. And Vrabel, if you put the genie back in the bottle and they start to suck again, they're going to call for Vrabel's head. So if you're Mike Vrabel, you are not hiding Henderson anymore. The problem that I have with Travion Henderson is that week 14 bye. So if you are playing for the playoffs, yes, absolutely, I'm on Henderson and Igbuka. If you are playing to win now,
if you're in a win to get in mode, that's a little bit rougher. But in terms of setting yourself up for the playoffs, Adam, I absolutely love what you did there because I've been talking.
The wide receiver is straight volume to volume with touchdown upside, and you have the better.
That's actually better. I have Igbuka rated significantly higher than Rice for the playoffs because of the scheduling that Kansas City has.
It's good to see you, Michael. It's good to see you.
Mike, love you.
And I don't speak Cyrillic languages or Russian, but hopefully this is a good thing. Adam, if I was about to trade away Rice, who should I target? Concerned about the playoff schedule with looking for wide receiver running back suggestions.
So that last question gave you a great answer. And Buka's a good look. Well, first off, are you looking to do a straight 1-for-1 or a package? Because I think you can get Rice in a package that's equivalent to like a Devontae Smith plus a Pickens. And I think that's a fair 2-for-1 if you're going for the volume play. If you're looking for Rice into a straight push, I can definitely make the argument for a Collins, for a Lamb, if you're looking for a one-on-one, and that would be the kind of the tier I'm looking at. So if you said, hey, someone's offering me Rice for only, I don't know, like Laporta or only Ladd, I would say definitely no to those. I think that those are too low. The two of them together, if Laporta was healthy, I would do it. But that's kind of the threshold that I'm looking at. Again, I think that Rice is a player you guys should be trading. You should be considering doing that now because that playoff run for Kansas City is brutal when you consider what the actual day off is, what they did last time, and having to do it again.
So, Joe, I really like the idea of going out there for Devonta Smith. The one thing that I do have concern about for the playoff push here is that they have 2 games outdoors at Washington and Buffalo week 16, 17, and that could be not a very delightful combination. So I think that that's a little bit concerning for me. But if I'm trading Rice, like I just said before, Igbuka's a guy that I'm absolutely trying to target. If I'm trading Rice, I'm looking at anybody who's playing Miami as well. So
that's always a good roll.
Cincinnati, Tampa. So still Igbuka is going to be in there. DK Metcalf. People are going to be off DK, and I can see why.
Yeah, you better be getting a much bigger piece than just DK. Like it better be
no.
DK.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying he would be
Williams.
a part of it. And if I'm looking for a running back, I still do like Judkin's schedule moving forward. I also do like Derrick Henry. Still, if I'm going after there, San Francisco's defense is bad across the board, but unfortunately, not many teams can take advantage of that. Jonathan Taylor's probably going to have an amazing week 16.
Some people are going to hear you say Henry there, Bob, and they're going to be like, "Why would we invest in Henry?" And here's the fundamental reason here: when you have an incredibly proud future Hall of Famer who's playing nothing defenses and basically his career's on the line, I've never seen a reason in Derrick Henry's career not to bet on him. And this home stretch is his essentially legacy. And I think Henry's going to go off.
So for this question here, Riley, I like both these players this week. I tend to lean a little bit more toward Michael Wilson in PPR leagues because I think that Michael Wilson has an amazing ceiling. We saw a ceiling last week, and while I don't think he's going to reach that again this week, he has the pathway to do it. So
I think he's absolutely going to do it. There's no other pass catcher after him.
It is not out of the realm of possibility that Michael Wilson goes 8 for 100 and a touchdown this week.
Yeah.
And Judkins doesn't have that ceiling right now. Quincy, start one of these defenses this week, Houston or Cleveland. I'm on Cleveland. I do think that it's going to be problematic from like a perspective of like,
Yeah, Cleveland's got a great rating this week. Yeah, Cleveland's totally fine on that book.
Shedeur will probably make a lot of mistakes. So on the scoreboard, it might read 14-0 Raiders, but that could be like the Raiders scoring 2 defensive touchdowns. But I do think that the Browns defense is going to be capable of doing very well. I worry about Houston's defense against Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen can score from anywhere.
Yeah, I know that Houston's the second best scoring defense right now on ESPN for standard scoring defenses, but the answer is still Cleveland. You got to look at the matchup first and foremost. And
I really think Tillman will shine with Sanders, and Sanders will prove everyone wrong about him. And that's fair, Quincy.
Oh, I don't know about that second part, but I do think Tillman will definitely shine with Sanders.
I think there's a pathway you can make where Tillman is a guy that can totally go like 5 for 65 this week. Okay. Like there is a pathway there, but I don't believe the second part of your question. I do believe that it's going to take time for Shedeur to be good. And while
infinity amount of time,
if he plays good this game, people are still going to say, well, he played against the Raiders, so it's not that great. So
Mel Kiper needs to just get kicked off.
I question the second part of that, but I do like the idea of Tillman doing well this week. I do think that he could do well. Ravens, my lineup is Purdy, running backs or Trevion Henderson, tight end Fannin, wide receivers are Higgins, Shakir, and flex. I have Swift. I have Mooney, Dobbs, Emmanuel Wilson, and Downs on my bench. Any changes? That Shakir for me could easily flip into Dobbs or Mooney, depending upon what we see from, health perspective over the course of this weekend. So Mooney has been shit. Like, let's just be honest, guys. He's played like shit.
And now they're switching quarterbacks in Atlanta.
But here's the thing. Mooney and Kirk Cousins didn't do wholly awful last year together.
No, they were pretty all right.
And the other fact is that Mooney had problems not a lot of problems towards the end of the season catching from Michael Penix, but he did have concern. But one of the things to keep a note of in the last 2 weeks, Mooney had 15 targets, and that only equated to 4 catches. So while that box score is ass beyond belief, there's reason to believe that Mooney is a better play than Shakir this week because there is volume to be had in this offense because you have Kyle Pitts, Mooney, and then one of the other guys on Atlanta with Bijan that's going to get a good amount of looks. Now, Kirk Cousins.
And I also will put Wilson in instead of Swift. That's the other switch I would do.
And also, Joe, Dobbs has an incredible matchup as well, but he's got the Q tag. So I got to question if that's going to be a good thing for him, but he had 8 targets last week as well. So for me, the guy I'm taking out of that is definitely Shakir, and I'm putting in either Mooney or Dobbs depending on health, and I'm riding with one of those guys. And I think it's dealer's choice on who you want to start because I think either is going to get a good amount of volume. And Joe suggested,
and I'm a running back core, so I would go with Wilson in the flex,
and that's fair too. If Emmanuel Wilson is getting a full complement of snaps.
Oh, of course. It's all dependent upon the injury.
So, CC, let's get into it here. We got a couple other questions in the chat, and we will answer all the questions here. Let's deep dive this question here for CC really quickly here, Joe. So, I can't shake the feeling Purdy over Josh Allen this week is the play. So, CC, there are pathways that you can definitely take that would project you to go into Brock Purdy. But I will say this for Brock Purdy. is that
Bob, you take the Purdy side. I'll take the Allen side.
In order for Brock Purdy to be successful, he is going to have to complete a large number of passes. And what we have seen from Carolina has actually been secretly decent some games and then absolute ass other games.
That's a good way to put it.
And so I look at this and I see a team that over the last 10 games of the season, which is almost the whole entire season here, has given up 29 pass attempts on average per game and around 20 completions per game. And that does account for 2 games against Michael Penix. So take that for what it's worth. But when you even consider that, the defenses that have been giving up the top is San Francisco. San Francisco has been allowing around 36 pass attempts a game. So the reason for Brock Purdy is that San Francisco's defense can't stop anything. So there are going to be more pass attempts to go around than statistically is going to be Carolina's average, because sometimes those games have gotten out of hand early or late, and it just depends. So statistically speaking, there are probably going to be around 32-ish pass attempts for Brock Purdy in this game. Now, the questions that you have to ask yourself is, when you base this off of his historical completion percentage and the fact that Carolina is only allowing around 20 completions per game, which is one of the lowest in the league, do you think he can hit around 25 completions? Because if he can hit 25 completions, he's probably going to be somewhere in that 230-yard category, maybe a little bit higher. But again, the looming Christian McCaffrey, that they could just hand Christian McCaffrey the ball and him do his thing, is out there as well. The other thing is
not. McCaffrey only has like 3.8 a carry. Like, they have to throw the ball this year to him.
I get that, but also when it comes to touchdowns, Christian McCaffrey can run 2 touchdowns and then catch a touchdown, and San Francisco still win that game. When I look at it from this other perspective as well, and we say that San Francisco allows a lot of passing touchdowns to their opponent, but Carolina doesn't. Carolina's in the top 5 in terms of not allowing passing touchdowns. And so where I look at this and I say, statistically speaking, Brock Purdy has a pathway to absolutely take advantage and score better than the statistical average of what Carolina's been giving up. But the other thing, and this is probably what Joe's going to talk about a little bit, is that if they want to win this game, Buffalo, and statistically speaking, Josh Allen has the worst matchup on the slate.
Oh, he does. There's no doubt about that.
He has the worst matchup on the slate. But here's the other thing too, is that Josh Allen, they don't need to throw the ball for 300 yards for Josh Allen to score a bunch of fantasy points.
Yeah, Paul, that's a big part of it.
If Brock Purdy is going to be a top 5 quarterback this week, he is going to have to throw for around 265 yards and 3 touchdowns, which probably isn't going to happen in this matchup. And if it is going to happen, it's going to happen in a back and forth matchup with catch-up. With Josh Allen has the capability to run in 3 touchdowns, and those stats are not painted the picture in what this Houston matchup is. Houston,
well, that's exactly it. So given the fact that we've gone really long on this deep dive here, it's certainly the answer to the question in totality. It's Purdy would have to crash into or for Purdy to win, he would have to exceed his ceiling, and Allen would have to crash into his floor. The only way Allen crashes into his floor is by getting sacked like crazy, and then ultimately Buffalo losing the game. But given that what's at stake for the Bills, Buffalo is not losing this game. And Josh Allen has shown, starting last week, putting that Superman cape on, he's winning come hell or high water. Let's face it, Houston is either going to be a wild card team they're going to have to face with if they lose to them, or they're going to have a chance to win this division if they win. Either way, this is a huge game from the Buffalo perspective. And when you look at New England's schedule, it's a lot like looking at Baltimore's schedule. There's not a whole lot of losses left on it. So Buffalo cannot be dropping games at all. And I believe that when it's all said and done, Allen is going to put on that Superman cape, and you're getting at least 4 TDs out of him.
As we get through these questions, Joe, this question here is interesting.
This one's a lot closer because Lamar might not have to go through the gas because he's playing the Jets. I would consider Purdy over Lamar maybe, but I also could see Lamar running for 150.
Statistically speaking here, there is while Lamar Jackson has a much better matchup, the problem with Lamar has been kind of like twofold over the last several weeks, right? Where you have in that game against Miami, he hit a really good passing ceiling of 204 yards and 4 touchdowns. He got to 26 points, which was a great score. The last 2 matchups, he has been sub 20. And that has come at the expense of not being over 200 yards passing. Now, the Jets are absolutely a team that they could capitalize that on. But the problem is they're not passing enough. Baltimore isn't passing.
It's almost become like Hurts, isn't it?
Enough. And I do believe that if they want to win this game against the Jets, they do have an easy pathway to do that. And that's just give the ball to Derrick Henry.
And that's probably what they're going to do.
So for me, I would not sit Josh Allen for Brock Purdy, but I could convince myself to sit Lamar for Brock Purdy.
I get that. I personally would still start Lamar because the upside ceiling.
The upside is totally
the floor
there.
of Lamar is so much lower than Josh Allen's floor anymore. And that's how you can make the argument. It really comes down to, are you doing the floor or the ceiling play?
And I think the floor for Lamar is also lower than Brock Purdy's.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like Lamar's floor could significantly make that that's why it comes down. Are you want a comfortable floor? That's Burrow or that's Purdy. Do you want a high ceiling? That's Lamar, and Allen's isn't even higher.
So quick hit here: 1 running back, 1 wide receiver, 2 flex. Hunt, Tootin, Singletary, Myers, BTJ, Slayton, Booty.
Is BTJ playing?
I have not seen any.
I haven't seen him in
BTJ. If BTJ isn't playing, I think you can lean a little bit into Jacoby Myers this week. We saw 2 weeks with Jacoby. They're showing that he's going to get the ball if, BTJ was a limited practice today. But Jacoby Myers, it's a bad matchup on paper. But he projects that he's going to get probably 5 to 6 targets if BTJ's out. If BTJ is playing, you play BTJ. Now, as it goes to the other matchups, Booty is going to play. From everything that I've heard,
Booty has to be on this list, regardless how you cut it.
I think you're starting Booty and you're starting BTJ if BTJ is playing. If BTJ is not playing, I'm leaning a little bit more into Jacoby Myers. Now, Slayton was dealing with an injury as well. He came out of I believe he came out of the week prior to this week's game. He's still questionable. He's not practicing. He was out last week as well. He is not on the menu. So then when you look at it, you're like, oh, I can't start 2 Jaguars, or I don't want to start 2 Jaguars. You can, but you probably don't want to. So I think that I would look.
Then that puts you with Hunt and Singletary. And Bob, that's kind of where I was going to get to here. You're of the 3 Jaguars you had there, and Tootin, Myers, and BTJ. You're playing BTJ if he's healthy. If not, you're playing Myers. The rest of this equation was eliminate 2. The other 2 to get eliminated are the Jaguars. So Hunt is your running back, Singletary is a flex, Myers is a flex, and Booty is a flex. And that's kind of injuries telling you what you have to do.
Yeah, and then you kind of got to play it by ear from there with the injuries. I still think Cleveland's a great play this week.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets are notoriously good for destroying things, but Tyrod Taylor's an actual professional in a circus of horribleness, and there's something about just having the professional do his gig.
That was an absurd.
That's why we go with dude. And the Raiders are going into horrible weather. It's Ohio, and they already quit. I mean, just stick with Myles Garrett getting you 6 sacks.
Here's what I know about this next question here, guys. This is what I know. I know that there has been some news about Godwin potentially playing, and I know Igbuka's a little bit banged up as of today. The matchup for Cade Otton is incredible. The matchup on the other side for Kyle Pitts is also good. But the problem is Kirk Cousins and Kyle Pitts do not work together well. We have seen evidence of this where he just keeps forgetting about Kyle Pitts. Now, there's going to be a pathway where you can't.
I can show you the reason on tape if you want it. I mean,
there's going to be a way to say that you can't forget about Kyle Pitts this week, but you can't. So for me, it's Cade Otton.
Yeah, it is.
While the projection is lower for Cade Otton, I think that the ceiling could be a little bit higher, knowing that Kirk Cousins and Kyle Pitts, they've got a history.
So I was on a show last night from the stands on YouTube. Give a shout out to them for having me on. And we were talking about how the next time you see Kyle Pitts aggressively fighting for the ball will be the first time that NFL footage has ever caught Kyle Pitts aggressively fighting for a ball. And that's why Kirk Cousins doesn't throw it to him.
Ball awareness. If you're Mike Tomlin, that's ball awareness right there.
He doesn't even try it. He doesn't want to touch the ball.
We see all the questions in the chat, guys. We will get to all the questions. We are Local Football Flavor. We do answer every question.
We're at the hustle here, Bob. We got a lot of people firing a lot of questions at us.
Which wide receiver would you rather start in order between Christian Watson, Booty, DK, and Pierce? So you know that I absolutely love Alec Pierce, but this is
Pierce
not
has to be first.
This is not the matchup for Pierce, honestly.
Pierce is just Pierce. I'd put him first no matter what.
For me, if Christian Watson is healthy, he's clearly cementing himself as a guy that is going to be involved in this offense. Since coming back, 3 targets, 4 targets, 5 targets. So again, 1 target a game.
I don't think the touchdown part he's been having with it is sustainable. It's always been the argument with Christian Watson.
I don't think the touchdown part is sustainable, but I'm not writing off Christian Watson this week. Now, as it goes to Alec Pierce, like I said, Alec Pierce has a tough matchup this week, but he is a very trustworthy target for Daniel Jones. The question is, will they be able to get after Daniel Jones this week and disrupt him in the same way that the Steelers disrupted him the prior weeks? So I think that that's something that's interesting to consider as well. If this wasn't going up against City, Alec Pierce would be my guy. But the guy that I'm going to say above all these guys is Booty. Now, Booty's matchup is a great matchup. It's against Cincinnati. There's a story you could write that they're not going to have to pass the ball much. He missed 2 games just recently.
Not if Burrow's back.
He missed 2 games just recently, but prior to missing games, 5 targets, 2 targets, 5 targets, 3 targets, 3 targets, 3 targets, 1 target. So he's a guy that they use for touchdown upside. And if you're leaning into touchdown upside because you lost Drake London, I think you have to lean into Booty or Watson because those are the guys that are going to have the touchdown upside. DK and Pierce, they're going to have volume upside, but they might not catch a touchdown. The other 2 are going to have the touchdown upside with a little bit more of a volume concern, but I think I'd lean a little bit into Booty, knowing that it could be a slightly more competitive match.
Yeah, Jesse, unless you're getting return yard points, DK doesn't belong in this conversation. I personally go with Pierce, but I get Bob's argument for Booty.
Does A.J. Brown bounce back in Dallas? I'm thinking of starting Wilson, the Cardinals, over him in the flex. I would start Michael Wilson over A.J. Brown. And I know that's going to be pretty controversial, but A.J. Brown...
A.J. Brown is working his way out of Philadelphia. He's a former diva who's realizing he's not the prettiest girl at the dance anymore.
Guys, there's a pathway that I can see where A.J. Brown goes over 100 yards this week, but I'm not really confident in that pathway.
Dude, there's a pathway where I see A.J. Brown gets cut the first day the Super Bowl's over.
Roman, should I trade Igbuka for Derrick Henry? This is a fair trade.
I like that idea.
If you want a running back and you want to pay Igbuka for a running back, Derrick Henry is a perfectly good running back.
I bet you get more than King Henry, though. I bet you get something extra thrown in with it.
If I could get Derrick Henry and Alec Pierce, I'd definitely do something like that.
Yeah.
Ravens, I forgot to say I have Purdy starting, but pick up Burrow. Who would you start? I'd still start Purdy, I believe, out of those 2 guys because, like I said, I'm just not super confident.
Yeah, you got to get a week of Burrow proving it.
And he could light it up. Like I said, he could light it up. But Brock Purdy has a safer floor, I think. In this league here, Quincy, 1 running back, 2 flex, Chase Brown, Henderson, Harvey. So I'm going to stop there. I just said 2 of the names that I think you have to start. Chase Brown and Henderson, balls to the wall, start them both this week. Harvey, Swift, Benson, if he plays, Alec Pierce, Pearsall, full PPR. I'm off Pearsall in this discussion point. I don't think that he is going to be as relevant as some of these other guys. Joe, what are your thoughts on some of these other guys coming down the pipeline?
I know you just said you wanted Chase Brown. I'm not putting him in anywhere near this. My answer would be
tough matchup, but still, he's going to have to Jamar.
I like where Henderson's at. I don't think there's any way they can put him back in the bottle. And then in terms of your other choices, since now we're just talking about straight up flexes.
Well, Harvey's not playing this week because he's on a bye, so you can't start Harvey.
Well, that's true. Timeout. Yeah. But if this is a rest of the season question, which is how I interpreted this, it would be Henderson, Harvey, and Pierce. That's how I would look at this as rest of the season. Obviously, this week you don't get Harvey, so then it's it's still Pierce, obviously. And if Benson is back, I like the Arizona running game. It's really the only thing that they got going that's consistent.
It's a good running game, but I think I'd lean Chase Brown, Henderson, and Swift, to be honest with you, because like I said, the injury, coming back from that injury, them having two other running backs there, Benson might not project as well this week. Alec Pierce has
I think Benson will instantly jump ahead of those two. My concern with Swift is he's Gibbs without the scoring ability. So if you're just giving him the ball for 80 yards in the middle of the field, what am I going to do with 8.4 points? That's my concern with Swift.
It does have limited upside, and I think that if you're throwing a wide receiver in there, Quincy, which wide receiver would you want to start? It would be Pierce over Pearsall if I wanted to start one of those wide receivers. But I would tend to lean on the running backs a little bit more. The pass catching running backs are definitely the ones you want to hit a little bit more, and that's where Chase Brown and Henderson come into play, and where Benson could be very useful if he plays. In Dynasty, Goddard or DJ Moore?
Goddard?
I don't really like that at all. I mean,
that's like talking about 2 C minuses, dude.
I would probably tend to lean into DJ Moore in Dynasty. 28 years old, still probably going to be relevant at one point.
Got to hope he's not a Bear next year.
Goddard is 30. Tight ends do last a little bit longer, but it really depends on the play.
See, I see upside for Goddard as A.J. Brown fades away in Dynasty.
I see that as well.
But but if DJ Moore's on another team, it would be DJ Moore. He's much more talented.
So Jesse, here, it's Brees.
It has to be.
Brees because Tyrod Taylor is a better quarterback than Fields.
Yeah, they're actually going to get a thing called a first down. Something that New York doesn't see very much.
We know Brees is going to get volume, but here's the thing. If Jaylen Warren remains questionable going into Sunday, you start both Gainwell and Hall.
Oh, yeah, Gainwell is a smash start if Warren is out. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I really want Tillman. I don't know who to drop. Who would you drop out of these guys? Tootin, Hunt, BTJ, Singletary to beat the waivers or hold?
I'd cut Singletary. And my entire reason for cutting Singletary is at any given moment,
you're welcome,
the Giants can just quit. And there's all the reason and evidence that they could. With Tootin still being in the playoff hunt, and I wouldn't want to cut either of your Jags. Same answer with Hunt. So for me, Singletary, plus he has the least amount of upside. So that would be my answer.
Yeah, I could see myself dropping Singletary out of that grouping of guys for Tillman if I.
And I definitely do want Tillman.
LGR or Sean Tucker this week? Well, it's Sean Tucker.
He's starting.
The matchup isn't great. And that's the thing that you want to be worried that you might be worried about here is that if that matchup isn't great because that line is really good, that you might have some question marks about that. But the thing that you gotta like about Tucker is that he has a home run threat. Okay. Mm-hmm. He had 19 carries for 106 yards, 2 targets for 34 yards. On 9 carries the week before, he had 53 yards. So he is a home run threat, and that is of which Rachaad White is not. And so
the other thing you got to worry about with Algier is that with Cousins coming in, their passing game could step up, and their percentage of run to pass mix starts leaning more in the pass, cutting away the opportunities for Algier to have.
And the thing about Algier is that if you're playing Algier, you got to lean into the fact that you think Atlanta's going to get within the 5-yard line, because that's where Algier is going to shine. And I like Sean Tucker a little bit more in that conversation. Nino, start 1, wide receiver, 2 flex. Jacoby, Jaden Higgins, Tez, Algier, Hunt, Pacheco, big play bonuses. So I would lean a little bit on Jaden Higgins here, to be honest.
Thank you for putting in the big play bonus part, Nino. That will affect this.
I would lean a little bit Jaden Higgins here. Like I said earlier, he in 2 consecutive weeks, he's had 7 targets. And again, those are 2 consecutive weeks with Davis Mills at 7 targets. The prior weeks, there was 1 prior week prior to that with 8 targets with CJ Stroud. When I look at this situation and I say, like, hey, there's all the makings of a great game there. CJ Stroud's out, Davis Mills is back in. I think you got to start Jaden Higgins.
I agree with that. Higgins is one of my dudes.
Now, for the other one, when you look at the 2 flexes here, because I don't see Hunt or Pacheco having any big play potential at all, and I think that they're much safe. Like Hunt is much safer if they're moving the ball to get a touchdown, and the matchup is going to be a bit more competitive here. But he's topping out at around 50 yards, and there's no big play there. Pacheco similarly, I don't see it. So I think you have to keep your head on a swivel. If Godwin plays, I'm not quite sure how useful Tez will be to you this week.
I think Tez is useful regardless.
But I do think that
he's playing Mike Evans' role when you watch the film.
I think Jacoby, Jaden, and Tez are the 3 guys that I would go with here because I don't see big play upside from the other 3. And the other 3, and particularly Hunt and Algier, are just, the goal line guys. Deep dive here for Josh. May, Lamb, Rice, Igbuka, Henderson, Saquon, Tyler Warren, the tight end, Woody Marks in the flex. The bench is BTJ, Tez, Trey Tucker, Juwan, Christian Watson, Manungai, Bashal Tootin, Omarion Hampton. The Gibbs owner is 4-7 and lost London. Needs a wide receiver.
Well, then that's time to swim in the shark-infested waters, man. Let's start chomping.
You know what you're doing? This is what you're doing. You're saying, hey, I'm ready to move Rashee Rice. You can convince me to get
Rice for Gibbs is a play. It gets rid of the temptation of starting Rice whenever he's going to be shut down due to the playoff scheduling. So that would be a direct answer. And you might even be able to get a little extra prying out of him. Depending on his desperation level. Because then what your team looks like is now it's Lamb and Buka and probably Watson playing. And there's a ton of upside with that playoff roster. And now you're going to have Saquon and Gibbs or Henderson and Gibbs. I 100% would do Rishi for Gibbs.
You would be starting Henderson, Saquon, and Gibbs. To juice it up, Josh, if you wanted to offer a guy like Tyler Warren, Rice and Tyler Warren, or Rice and Marks, because once you get Gibbs, you're not starting Woody Marks now.
Yeah, but you don't overpay. Rice for Gibbs will get it done itself.
I don't think Rice for Gibbs is fair enough. I think you are going to have to juice it a little bit more.
So if that guy's desperate for a receiver, that's good enough.
Here's the guys I wouldn't move on from your roster. So I would not move on from Lamb. I would not move on from Igbuka. I would not move on from Saquon. I would not move on from Travion right now. The rest of them, dealer's choice who you want to move, especially knowing that you have Omarion Hampton as well. I like the idea of going after Gibbs here for sure, but this also makes, with Omarion Hampton on your team, it makes Woody Marks a guy that you can be that can be expendable.
Yeah, and then that might be enough to get it done, so he knows he's getting a back to replace
because
Gibbs.
Again, Henderson has a Week 14 bye, so you want to be prepared for that Week 14 bye, and I think that your team, the way it's built right now, is prepared for that. And see what you can get, and maybe you can juice it back and try to get London on the back end as well, depending on what you offer. Make your team.
So you're saying Rice and Marks to try to get Gibbs, and we don't know how long London's out for, so throw them on. So you don't. Well, you're going to cut them anyway.
I'd say Rice, Tyler Warren, and Marks if you wanted to make it a little bit more fair, because I think Juwan Johnson's fine as a tight end.
See, I don't really want London.
Is there flex ETN or Mooney this week? 0.5 PPR. ETN is safer. If you want the safer play, I think you got to lean into ETN. He is dealing with a little bit of an injury, but the matchup dictates that in order for them to win this game, they're going to give the ball to ETN and Tootin. ETN has not had less than 16 carries since they played the Rams, where he had 8 carries. So I think you got to lean ETN, even though Mooney's probably going to get a good amount of volume.
Yeah, I'm trusting in Cousins. And that's why I'm going to go in Mooney. It might be horrible, but I'm trusting in Cousins.
Who to start in order between Cook, Juwan Jennings, and Emmanuel Wilson? Joe, what do you think?
I'm going Cook, Wilson, Jennings. That one's like not even have to think hard on.
Yeah, I think that Cook is a guy that you've got to lean into this week, especially if they want to win that game.
It's a tough matchup, but he's still the second leading rusher per game and per carry.
Then Juwan Jennings, J.C. Horn is a great cornerback right now. But in the order that you wrote them is the order that I would take them, unless you see that Emmanuel Wilson is going to be the starter this week. Then I'm
not that assumption that he is.
Yeah, then you could flip-flop Jennings, but I think that Jennings and Cook are great starts. BT, you got a trade question here, so let's scroll down a little bit. 12-man PPR, Daniel Jones, Joe Burrow, Judkins, JT and Hunt, love that for you. Ken Walker, Wilson, Puka, Jay Jettis, Pickens, and Pearsall, Tyler Warren at tight end. I get Lamar and Tet for Pickens and Judkins. I am going to tell you this. I know you've been waiting, BT, and this is what you don't know about me, is this is the year I end up trading for Lamar Jackson. But I'm going to tell you this because this is a fact. This is a fact. Do not trade for a quarterback where you can get production from a quarterback of a lesser price off the waiver wire. Plus, you already have Daniel Jones and Joe Burrow. You do not.
Lamar isn't benefiting
do this trade. You do not need to do this trade, and I would not do this trade. Tet is not better, statistically speaking, on a week-to-week basis than Pickens, and Lamar and Judkins is not. Again, this is like I traded for Lamar and Judkins, so I'm speaking from experience here. Is that Lamar can get you that 40 points, absolutely, but so Daniel Jones and Joe Burrow can get you 26. And giving up Pickens and Judkins' production potentially going on the course of this season.
Yeah, because ultimately what you're going to do here, Tiger, is you're going to put a hole at your running back spot that you're going to try to replace with Walker or Hunt. You don't want to do that. You do not want to. Your strength of your team is Judkins, JT, Puka, and Jettis. Don't mess with those four. They should be no trade considerations. If anything, if I were you, I'd be looking at selling a quarterback rather than buying one now that Burrow's coming back and people are going to be so spicy for him.
CC, I see your deep dive there. We're gonna go through some of these quick hitters here. I need to drop someone. So now that Parker Washington basically has been relegated to wide receiver 3, can I safely drop him? I think it's safe to say that we don't know actually what's safe ever in the NFL. Injuries happen. So I think it's fair to drop Parker Washington if you need to pick up somebody else. Would you guys trade Rashee Rice for Igbuka and Chase Brown? If I'm getting Igbuka and Chase Brown, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm on the Buka side, yeah.
Who out of Trey Tucker, Juwan Johnson, Christian Watson, Monangai Tootin to drop for Sean Tucker or even Burden or don't pick up? I'm dropping Trey Tucker for Sean Tucker. Easy. 1,000%.
Yeah.
Not even, it's not even a fair comparison.
Yeah, I'm probably not cutting the other three. Like, I don't want to cut Juwan, Watson, or Monangai. I want to trade them. Because especially Watson, because I hate the all or nothing.
Just understand that Sean Tucker could be a 1-week rental until Bucky comes back, or could absolutely have that schedule that Bucky has in this fantasy playoffs and absolutely smash. So you absolutely want Sean Tucker on your team. And the piece that you're not going to be mad about giving up, even if he pops off for another 40-point game because you weren't going to start him anyway, is Trey Tucker.
That's right.
Do I trade Judkins in London for Henry, or who should I go after? I think that's a little much, but knowing that we don't know when London's coming back, I think that I would rather have Derrick Henry because he has more touchdown upside than Judkins right now. Would I do this? I would continue to shop. I don't know if I'd do this.
I don't want to sell Judkins. I'd have to find another piece to move.
I think I'm close. If Sanders throws a couple pick sixes, it affects the Browns defense. Absolutely, Derek. That's what I was saying earlier, is that I do think, like I said, I do think that the Browns defense is a great play this week because they are facing an anemic offense. But the problem is that if Shedeur throws 2 or 3 interceptions and those get returned to the house, because that's always possible.
Yeah, but who on the Raiders actually can catch it? I mean, let's start with that question.
Also,
again, Stefanski's not a bad coach. He's won Coach of the Year twice. At the end of the day, his career is riding on Shedeur not sucking. I don't think we're going to see 6 pick sixes out of Shedeur.
So,
or really any.
If I'm picking up an IR quarterback stash from these two, it's Jaden Daniels. It's Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, no doubt.
CC, Joe Mixon finally officially ruled out rest of the season. I saw that. The signs.
Yeah, all right, bro.
Fire him up. Fire him up. Fire up, Woody. In the flex, Woody Marks or Michael Wilson. Again, guys.
This week I'm going Wilson.
I love Woody long term. I love Woody this week, but it's Michael Wilson in the flex. If I had the ability to get both of these guys in my lineup, I would, though. If I had the room to get both of them in, I would. If you go Marks, make sure he's in your running back spot, not the flex, especially because
that's right. That's a Thursday football law.
And BT, we wouldn't do that trade that was up here. I would not do that. Absolutely, I would not.
No, you didn't need a quarterback
here tonight. I'm nervous, or play Watson. I think what you got to understand, Muffin, is that Shakir's upside is tied to volume with potentially play. Christian Watson's is tied to being kind of like a mystical touchdown play as well. His volume is going to be slightly lower, but if he hits 7 or 8 targets, though, Christian Watson is a slam dunk play.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. So I mean, Muffin, it really comes down to this: is in your individual matchup you're in, do you need more of a floor or a ceiling? Because these guys are like the antithesis of the two options. Watson is the ceiling guy with a floor that you can drop off a building, and Shakir is a nice safe floor that is, not going to have a high ceiling. It's what do you want?
And Quincy, we answered that question. We'd be on Purdy. I'd be on Purdy. He would be on Lamar, but it's really, really close. Jennings or Nico tonight? Well, I'm not benching Nico at all.
It never. Not even consideration.
I find a way to put Juwan Jennings in my lineup, and Nico is always in the lineup.
That's right.
KJ, should I pivot off of Ferguson this week, dropping Singletary to play Fant or Chig full PPR? With all the injuries that are going on in Tennessee, I still don't think it's a good idea to play Chig Okonkwo. Okay,
I don't.
The volume isn't there. The matchup isn't great. Statistically speaking, it's just not a good play. Fant is interesting though. With Burrow back, Fant could and Chase not there. Fant could absolutely be relevant this week to a degree that you would want to start him.
Hey, Bob, do we have any more deep dives in the queue? Because if I got to bounce here to the top of the hour, I want to make sure I hit all the deep dives.
I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. We do have one in the queue.
Okay.
I necessarily wouldn't pivot off Ferguson. I could see why you would want to. And if I were to pivot, I would be on Fant. I don't think you need to, but if I were to pivot, I would be on Fant. It's Michael Wilson. Marvin Harrison is out. We saw what he could do. He's locked and loaded for at least 8 targets, assuming health is all there. I think you got to play Michael Wilson. I like Christian Watson this week, but I think you got to play Michael Wilson there.
I agree with that. I think he gives you upside that could actually match Watson.
And BT, we can revisit that too if you want a little bit more of what I think about trading for quarterbacks. Would you drop Alec Pierce or Pearsall for Godwin? No. We still don't know what Godwin's health is. He's practicing, but he dealt with a second injury. That he re-injured himself with a different injury when he came back. So now he's going to be coming back from 2 injuries. And while statistically speaking, he could get 6 targets in this offense, I do not think that you want to give up Alec Pierce or Pearsall, knowing that Pearsall is also a week removed from his removal from injury designation as well. All right, we're finishing. We got a lot of deep dives in there. Let's hit those. Would you drop Sutton for Godwin?
Now we're starting to think.
I see both as being the same relevancy moving forward.
Which means tiebreaker is the health. Take the health.
Tiebreaker is the health, so it would be Sutton. Ricardo, flex, Aaron Jones, Monty, or Jacoby.
Monty.
That's definitely a player that you can lean into. If BTJ's out, I think it's interesting to play Jacoby.
I need Jacoby to show me he's adapted to the hardest offense in the league first. with the quarterback who throws the most drops in football history. I need to show that he can actually do it.
I don't think any of these guys projects for more than like 12 points in my book.
But Monty gives you the best chance. He just does.
I don't think he gives you the best chance. I think Aaron Jones gives you the best chance, actually, out of this group of players. So I'm on Aaron Jones with a pivot.
We're going to disagree on that one. We'll keep track of that one over the weekend.
Would you start Michael Wilson over Javonte Williams versus the Eagles defensive line? Now, this is certainly a question here, Robbie. I'm
taking the targets.
I still believe Javonte Williams is a great play this week. And I don't.
Yeah, this is a decent. Now, this is two B pluses fighting each other.
My question to you is, why are you thinking about benching Javonte Williams? What are the two other running backs that you're going to be starting? Here's the thing. If Javonte Williams doesn't get a touchdown, his floor, his week is going to be around 10 points because he doesn't get receptions.
100 or so.
He doesn't get receptions, and he's going to run for around 80 to 100 yards. In order to get a touchdown, he's going to have a good week. Or in order to have a good week, he's going to have to get a touchdown. I think you can lean Michael Wilson. He is the hot hand, so there is some damage control that you could do. Maybe Jacoby Brissett goes to like Zay Jones or something like that this week.
Nope.
But I think that if Jacoby Brissett is projecting to throw at least 25 to 30 passes, that Michael Wilson's going to be a target on at least 8 of them. And I think that you could take that volume, and it's at least going to get you at least 8 points, it's at least going to get you 6 points, which is Javonte Williams' floor. So if you project Javonte Williams to score more touchdowns, then you can start Javonte. But I think Michael Wilson's PPR volume projects him a little bit higher already to start with than Javonte Williams' overall rushing volume. Standard league here. Would you trade Bucky for Jalen Warren and Kenny Gainwell? I need a win badly to stay in the playoff race, and Buckley's out this week also. If you need a win, there are worse trades you can make.
Yeah.
One of these players will be irrelevant in a couple of weeks, though. So I think if you need a win, the matchups on the slate for the Steelers are not terrible. So
they have Miami in there during the playoff run.
So I think that if you needed to do this, you should. Especially if you need a win. I think that Warren and Gainwell are in a great matchup this week, and you can definitely get a win out of one of them. Brendan, I have Bijan, Chase Brown, Pickens, Puka, and Rashi all starting for me. I'm 9-2. Would you guys trade Rashi Rice for Henry or Henderson with the solid matchups the rest of the season? Yes.
I think I'd prefer King Henry over Henderson.
Yeah, me
There's
too.
No question Henry's getting the ball.
Me too. Luca, Justin Fields sucks, though. We've talked about this a lot. Justin Fields was a guy that we were looking at this season to be like, hey, his rushing upside is there as a fantasy quarterback. We can take advantage of that. And he did not.
He's just incompetent as a quarterback.
So, Brendan, I'm on Derrick Henry. If I'm trading Rice into Derrick Henry, I'm pretty sold on that. Manny, what do you think of Cook and Juwan Jennings for Bucky and Diggs for the playoffs? If you're already in the playoffs, Manny, Bucky and Diggs could be interesting for you.
Yeah, because the entire risk of this bet is Bucky back. Because if Bucky's back, I prefer Bucky's run in the playoffs over Cook's.
I think you're overpaying.
I do think you're overpaying. I think you should be able to do that without having to include Cook.
Yet. I would pick one of those players that I want and try to build a trade around it. I don't think you necessarily need Diggs. I like Diggs a lot, but I don't think you need him. Travion or Chase Brown?
Travion all day over Chase Brown.
Travion this week over Chase Brown if you only had the chance to start one of them. As you know, I lost Scattaboo and Hampton, so I'm struggling at running back. I must start 2. Genty, Monty, Tootin, Monangai, Spears, full PPR league. All right, so Genty has to be on your books this week.
Unfortunately, he does.
And then I think if Tootin is healthy, I think Tootin shows enough that you could lean a little bit into Tootin this week.
I'd still go Monty.
And Monty, again, Monty's fair, but his floor is still low with limited touchdown upside if they're not in the red zone. Tootin's interesting to me, absolutely. And I think that Monangai is also interesting. Again, Swift is upgraded to full practice on Thursday with a hip. He had 21 carries last week. And then Monangai had how many touches did he have last week? I definitely wasn't a lot. So I don't think
he didn't do much.
Walk yourself into it. He had 12 carries last week too. So I mean, like the Steelers are giving up a decent amount of carries. I think it's Genti and Monangai or Tootin, one of those two. And I'm off Monty this week.
I love Monty way more than Bob, guys. That's a fun
now,
takeaway.
I trade Rice for London and RJ Harvey, half PPR, 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 1 flex. The running backs are JT, Etienne, Aaron Jones, Sean Tucker. Wide receivers are Rashee Rice, Amon-Ra, Devontae Pierce, Ricky Pearsall. Week 15 bye. I know injured, but if better for week 16, 17, I'm worried about Kirk.
Yeah, dude, because if London comes back, this is a home run, dude. So I would – this is more of the scarier route of doing the Rice trade, but I really like Harvey. So I can see that being okay, especially knowing that Sean Tucker has a shelf life and Harvey replaces that. This entire bet comes down to, does London play in the playoffs or not?
There are some tough matchups week 15, 16, 17 for RJ Harvey, statistically speaking. So he's not as a home run as I think. I would continue to shop Rice.
You probably can get something better than that.
Haven't been able to make any trades with Taylor and Gibbs. My best wide receiver is JMO. How would you feel about Judkins for Waddle? I would do something like that. I think it's fair.
Yeah, if you got Taylor and Gibbs, that's completely fine.
It's fair if you have Taylor and Gibbs and you want to shop Judkins like that for a wide receiver like Waddle who's walking into a good projected volume. I'm all for that, especially knowing that you're first going into a bye week. You're not benching either Taylor or Gibbs for Judkins. It's nice to have them in your back pocket, but if your best wide receiver is JMO, Waddle definitely secures you a little bit there. So who's a trade target with one of those quarterbacks, Joe? If you were going
I would go to someone who's really into the hype of Lamar or of Burrow, rather. That would be the one because you have Burrow and Danny Dimes. That Burrow would be the one I would move with all the excitement around him, kind of selling him as is before anyone knows what he is. That's how I would approach that, and then just Danny Diamond out, baby.
And BT, looking at your team, like if you're looking for a running back to sell them for, I think you have a bunch of those running backs already kind of on your roster. But like if I was going to sell one of those QBs, like Joe Burrow, see if you could get like Jaylen Warren or like that combination, Jaylen Warren, Kenny Gainwell. They're projecting really good over the course of the season, and I think that would be a group that I would kind of target there. Patrick, May or Allen this week? May is super consistent. You aren't really going to get a super low floor out of Drake May, and you aren't going to really get over 30 points from Drake May. Last week, he had 15 total points, and I think that was the lowest since he played Buffalo the last time in week 5. When I look at it this week against Cincinnati, he absolutely could capitalize on this matchup. Cincinnati plays quarterbacks a little bit differently than other teams. I see him as being a great play this week. He doesn't, like I said, he doesn't have that 40-point upside, but he's not going to lose you the week either. So if it were me, I would be on May here, Patrick. And you just saw Joe pop out. He had to leave at 5:00, hard leave. I'm going to stay on. We're going to answer all your questions here, so don't worry about it. Would you drop Slayton instead of Singletary for Tillman? Which one? Quincy, I'd be on Slayton. Slayton's already dealing with the injury. Singletary's healthy. He's getting some volume. Drop Slayton. I think it's fair to do something like that. Blake, would you guys trade Travion and McBride for Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs? Full PPR. The rest of my team is Hurts, Johnston, Sutton, Barkley, Gadsden, Vidal, Hampton. So here's the thing. I absolutely love Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs' contributions in their red zone games. The only problem that I have with this trade right now is that Jacobs is hurt. Suffered a knee contusion this past week. We do not know when he's going to return. Devontae Adams, similarly, was banged up going into last week, and I believe played through an injury, is currently fully healthy now. So he's never going to get lower than like 6-7 targets, okay? I still think that with your team, Johnston and Sutton are very scary starts on a week-to-week basis. But I'm not sure that Travion and McBride, I would do this If you would ask me this 2 weeks ago, yes, I would have done this 2 weeks ago because I do believe in Josh Jacobs's and Devontae Adams's powers in the red zone. But Trevion and McBride right now, especially with Jacobs being out, if you need to win right now, I don't think you can give up Trevion and McBride because we don't know what Josh Jacobs' health is going to be. But if you're not worried about that and you are already cemented in the playoffs and you want to go out and get Josh Jacobs, I think it's fair to do that. With the injury, I try to pay a little bit of a lower price, though. I try to pay a little bit of a lower price. See if you can do something a little bit different than that. My 3 tight ends on the roster are Goddard, Juwan, and I picked up Strange. Who should I start, or should I drop one for Noah Fant? I think it's fair to drop Strange for Noah Fant. Noah Fant, again, with Joe Burrow back in the saddle potentially here going into this week, Noah Fant draws an incredible matchup. Jamar Chase isn't going to be there. Noah Fant is a guy you could definitely roll with this week. However, overall, the Cowboys have not really played tight ends great overall over the course of the season. I think that you could lean a little bit into Dallas Goedert here. But I think overall, Juwan Johnson's in a very interesting spot. Atlanta has played tight ends overall pretty well over the course of the last 4 or 5 games. But the thing that's interesting about Juwan Johnson is that ever since giving up Rashid Shaheed, he is going to be a target for Tyler Shook, right? So you just look at the last 4 games, 5 receptions, 3 receptions, 4 receptions. 92 yards, 31 yards, 53 yards, 79 yards. So he's an integral part of this offense. And while it's not an incredible matchup for him by any stretch of the imagination, I think that I would lean a little bit on Juwan Johnson and I'd lean a little bit on Noah Fant this week. Again, the matchup for Dallas Goedert is a little bit better. But I think that you could easily lean into Juwan and Noah Fant this week. Start Marks or Judkins this week. BT, this is a question. You're after my own heart, man. These are 2 guys that I really, 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 really like. Now, when we look at Judkins has a super low floor, but you could see this matchup as being weirdly competitive in a way. Woody Marks has a very high ceiling, but a low floor as well. We're looking at 18 carries for 44 yards is a floor. He's getting the massive amount of volume. We saw Rico Dowdle really capitalize on this against the Bills. I think I'm leaning to start Marks today. Put him in your running back position and leave the flex open if you want to end up starting Judkins a little bit more. BT, on this, I'd be on Marks and Judkins, I believe, a little bit more than Wilson. We'll have to keep our eye on that going into the weekend. Wilson could be a tremendous start this week if he's given full reign against Minnesota, because those matchups, those interdivision matchups, interconference matchups there are always tightly contested. So Wilson could definitely be a play over Judkins. Right now here on Thursday, I'm leaning Marks and Judkins for you. But you could easily switch Judkins out for Wilson if you thought that that would happen. You're welcome, Robbie. Absolutely. Trade deadline this week. Trade Ricky Pearsall and get Oronde Gadsden. Caleb, if you need a tight end, I don't think this is a bad trade to make. Again, Ricky Pearsall is a guy that you've been holding for a very, 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 very long time. And Pearsall can absolutely smash given the right situation. Will you have him in your lineup when he does smash? That is the question. Oronde Gadsden is lined up for good volume for the rest of the season. And you can absolutely paint a picture where Oronde Gadsden is going to be very relevant as the season goes on. So for me, I think if I need a tight end and I could get Oronde Gadsden, sure, I would do that. But I would also position myself to say, well, is anybody selling Juwan? Is anybody selling Dallas Goedert? Is anybody selling A.J. Barner? Is A.J. Barner on the bench? Or is A.J. Barner on the waiver wire? And it's not going to cost you as much. And I think that those are just very relevant right now. Desperately need a wide receiver. Waivers are thin. Thoughts on Yoshi Vaz? Yoshi Vaz can absolutely have a great game this week without Jamar. And what we're looking at here, why I say this, just, statistically speaking, why do we say this? New England is allowing 31 pass attempts a game. They're allowing around 21 pass completions and around 216 passing yards. If Jamar Chase is out and they need to rely on other pass catchers, Yoshi Vaz has been relied on in the past, and he has scored touchdowns in the past. So if you are in dire straits, the volume, he should get around 4 targets in this game. So if you think that he could do a decent amount on 4 targets, he's worth a start. Blake, you're also 8-3 and will probably make the playoffs. So I like Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs. I do. I do think that the injury to Jacobs is a little bit scary right now because a knee contusion, that could be 4 games. And so he wouldn't come back until week 16, week 17. You might already be out of the playoffs. So that's my one concern about Josh Jacobs right now. Should I trade Dalton Schultz for Shakir? If you want to trade a tight end like Dalton Schultz for Shakir, that's fine with me. But just understand that these two players overall, I believe, project similarly point-wise throughout the rest of the year. I mean, Shakir has a little bit more upside in terms of the touchdown market potentially than Schultz, but volume-wise, and we say this, we've been saying this on the show for weeks now, guys. When you look at Dalton Schultz, last 5 weeks, right? 9 or 10 targets, 3 targets, 8 targets, 11 targets, 9 targets. I would, in a vacuum, I'd much rather have that than Shakir. But if I need a wide receiver, sure. Chris, how did I do on this trade? I gave up Herbie and Pittman Jr. for Lamar Jackson. So, Chris, I'm going to say this again for everybody that asks about quarterback trades. I always would suggest trading a quarterback if somebody wants a quarterback. But I don't really want to get quarterbacks back anymore. And here's why. And this is tied to what BT asked a little bit earlier as well. Statistically speaking, on any given week, there is a quarterback out there, potentially on waivers, that has a chance to score you 20-plus points. We have seen this time and time again this year. Bryce Young last week, Davis Mills the week before, Jackson Dart whenever he was on people's waiver wires before. There is no limit to the amount of quarterbacks that could potentially give you 20 to 25 points. I traded for Lamar this year, and I am getting burned by it because I gave up a good haul, and Lamar is underperforming. So when a player like this underperforms, what you need to understand is that giving up Herbie is always going to be in that market of like 15 to 24 points. He tends to not go much lower than that. So that's you're getting a safe floor with a guy like Justin Herbert, right? Looking at it, again, he had a terrible game the past week. Worst game of his career, 4 points, right? But every other game, we're looking at 15, 29, 26, 33, 19, 16, 15, 19, 20. While Lamar can throw up 40 points, Pittman is a piece that you could absolutely roll into as a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 on your team. So point-wise, you might never make up this difference. The only reason why you might trade for a high-profile quarterback like Josh Allen, Lamar, or Jalen Hurts is the fact that you want to trim the fat from your roster. While I don't think you necessarily lost, that is my personal opinion about quarterbacks from doing fantasy football, since the 1990s. Start one, Tillman or Singletary. Joe would probably lean on Tillman there, Quincy, and I would tend to lean a little bit more on Singletary. Chris, I have JSN, Nico, T-Mac, Franklin as my other receivers. Yeah, and that's fair, Chris. JSN, Nico, and T-Mac are guys that you're going to be starting on a weekly basis. Moving on from Pittman, like I said, it's fair enough. Like I said, this is a trade that really sounds more to me like you're trimming roster fat to try to move into an elite quarterback. And that's fair. And people do that all the time. Steve, I like Barner this week. Barner had a coming out party last week, was on fire. We look at that and we say, all right, how did it get there? 11 targets. The week before, no targets. The week before that, 4 targets. The week before that, 2 targets. The week before that, 3 targets. The week before that, 7 targets. So it's not like he's totally out of their periphery when it comes to passing him the ball on a week-to-week basis like some tight ends are. You could lean into Kyle Pitts if you think he's going to reestablish a decent connection with Kirk Cousins. And A.J. Barner has a lower floor, but I believe that the matchup is a little bit better for Barner, that I'm not nervous about moving into him because, again, Darnold passes the ball a lot. Rice and Marks for Gibbs was denied. He wants Rice and Henderson for Gibbs, plus Aaron Jones and Ken Walker. But I don't want Aaron Jones or Ken Walker. So, Josh, that's a big problem, man. I would rather keep Henderson there. I'd deny that one, and I'd play around with it a little bit more. See if he can do anything better than Aaron Jones, Ken Walker, because I don't think that they do much better for your team. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I would really consider it. I'd really consider it because I really love Gibbs. Gibbs and Aaron Jones for Rice and Henderson is maybe what I would do. But I'd play around with that a little bit more, Josh, to be honest with you. What's the likelihood that Mike Evans comes back before the playoffs, fantasy playoffs? It's not high. It's not high at all. And I don't think they would want to rush him back before the actual playoffs. So if they are, continuing to be very competitive over the course of the next couple of weeks, again, they're 6-4. If they have a chance to be in the playoffs with a healthy Mike Evans when it comes to it, and they don't need to use them to get there, I think that that's very good for them. So let's get some of these deep dives that we passed over on our way through the quick hits. We appreciate all the questions in the chat, guys. CD's drops are wild. I got an offer for CD. I'd be getting Amon-Ra and Genti. Am I crazy for considering this trade? I don't think you're crazy for considering this trade, CC. Let's take a look here, and let's just take a look at this schedule going forward, right? We look at Detroit's schedule moving forward, and we have Giants, Packers, Dallas, Rams, over in Rams, so it's going to be in a dome, Steelers, dome, Minnesota, dome. No worries in terms of the weather. We go to Dallas's schedule now, and we see that we have Minnesota in a dome. We have the Chargers in a dome, and we have Washington outside week 17. So I think for me, what this comes down to would just be more so, yeah, we do have some drops from CeeDee Lamb, but still, when you look at it, he's still getting 18, 16, 15, 25 points. He is always a threat to score a touchdown, and he's always a threat to be hyper-targeted. Amon-Ra, for some reason last week, was hyper-targeted, but fell to the extent of Jared Goff's inefficiency. Okay? And so when you look at this, I think it's more of a story of which quarterback do you like better moving forward? Do you like Jared Goff, or do you like Dak Prescott a little bit more moving forward? Now, I think it's a push on which one you would rather have there. And I think the thing that gets you over the top is potentially getting Genti. Now, if I can get Ashton Genti for week 17, I think that, yeah, I would consider giving up CeeDee Lamb because you're not losing the marketability so much of moving down from Amon-Ra because Amon-Ra is still getting elite levels of volume. Yeah, the touchdowns are a little bit harder to come by at some games and some points in time for him. But overall, on the course of the season, he's been stellar. Then we look at the Raiders' schedule, right? And we see a game against Philly week 15, then week 16 at Houston, which is in a dome, and then the Giants over in Vegas. So Giants might have given up by that point in the season, okay? And Genti's going to continue to run the rock. I would do this. I love CeeDee Lamb again, but the point is that if Genti improves you by a magnitude of like 5, then you absolutely go into the Genti side of things. Again, I'm not a big Genti fan over the course of the season, but I think that you absolutely can pivot into this right here because you're walking into equal production into Amon-Ra. So I really like that a lot. And that's what I would do. I would do that trade because I don't think you're losing out on the wide receiver production. 700 here, half PPR. Start Dalton Schultz or Jane Higgins tonight versus Buffalo, or wait and see how the injury situation works out in Tennessee and start Chamari DK or Van Jefferson. Yoshivas is also an option. So here's the thing. We talked a little bit about this last week when we were talking about tight end matchups and targeting players that are playing against, and if you want to target players playing against Buffalo. Buffalo has allowed the least amount of fantasy points to tight ends over the course of the season. When we look at the matchup last week, so let's pull the matchup up from last week. When you pull the matchup up from last week, you see that Cade Otton had 2 receptions for 28 yards. And that fits within the purview of what Buffalo does well, which is stopping the tight end. While Dalton Schultz is a volume hog, that is problematic. Now, when you look at what does Buffalo not do well, Buffalo is they're good enough, but slightly worse against wide receivers than they are against tight ends. Now, while they haven't given up a lot of targets to wide receivers over the course of the season, there is a framework that you could write that if 15 targets are split between Higgins and Nico Collins, that's going to be a good game for Jane Higgins. I think that Jane Higgins is a guy that you can absolutely lean on this week, especially if you're in your league with big play potential. Now, for the other question here, Chimere Dike or Van Jefferson, when you look at it, yes, Seattle, their secondary has gotten better over the course of the season. They've gotten healthier. If Tennessee wants to win this game, they're absolutely going to have to throw the ball more. Now, the problem is when we look at quarterbacks and we look at pass completions against these teams, we see that Seattle isn't in the top 5 in giving up pass completions. They're actually very good. They only offer about 19 pass completions a game, even though they're giving up around 34 attempts. Buffalo's offering around 15 completions per game and around 23 total attempts. Now, that could go one way or another. So do you want to rely on Cam Ward or do you want to rely on Davis Mills? That's the question that you have to ask yourself. Van Jefferson played admirably last week. Chimere Dike could have a great game. For me, I think that Houston is going to want to continue to try to win this. And Van Jefferson's targets of 7 is pretty damn good. But again, 7 bad targets is not that great. So I tend to lean Jane Higgins here because his matchup is a little bit better than all of them. Now, if you want to lean Yoshivas, that's fine too if you don't trust Houston this week. Because Jamar Chase is hurt. I think that either any of those is an interesting play. Higgins, I value a little bit more than the rest of them in terms of the overall total upside. KJ, in my ESPN league, should I flex Alex Pierce, Yoshivas, Matt Collins, Booty, or Coker? So again, I love Alec Pierce season long. I think Pierce is getting incredible volume. He's under the radar. And he's absolutely a guy that you could start every week. The problem is this matchup is going to be a tough matchup for him. Kansas City, like I was talking about with Buffalo, Kansas City is one of those teams that is not offering a lot of pass completions overall. They're offering around 20 pass completions per game to teams, right? And they're offering a lower amount of passing attempts. So Danny Dimes could absolutely make some mistakes and not get as many pass attempts in this game. Now, they're going to really pound down on Jonathan Taylor in this game. So there is a framework that you could have a great game from Alec Pierce here. Matt Collins, while he had an admirable game last week and a great game the week before, with Booty coming back, Booty has more touchdown upside. He has that big play threat. He's a lower volume play for sure, but he has that big play threat. And it's really hard to understand sometimes how the New England Patriots want to use their wide receiver room in terms of a fantasy perspective, because they could all get volume, but none of them is over like 5 to 7 targets. So you want the guy with the biggest upside in that grouping. And I think out of that grouping of players, your biggest upside is Booty. Now, if you're going for a volume play, I still wouldn't lean too much on Coker. I think that Coker can be a great play soon. But right now, I'm a little bit hesitant to roll him out, especially saying he's only gotten 4 targets right now. Bryce Young projectably can be very, has a huge variance from week to week. And then Yoshivas. Yoshivas could walk into that same volume of Coker with a better quarterback, better situation potentially. So for me, I think it's fair enough to say that the two New England guys are the most interesting plays on the slate right now out of those grouping of players because, again, Matt Collins, 9 targets against Tampa, 5 targets without Booty against the Jets, both great games from a waiver wire person. I would lean one of those New England wide receivers, and I would probably put my lunch on Booty because I think that he gets a touchdown this week against Cincinnati. But there's a way that they could just stop using him come the second half, and then Matt Collins is a better play. So take that information for what it's worth. You're welcome, CC. So let's get back into some of these questions here. Should I start Shakir tonight? I'm nervous. Or start Watson, Mooney, or Jacoby? Muffin, I think that I'm not nervous about not starting Shakir tonight. If I don't have to start Shakir tonight and I can roll into Watson, Mooney, or Jacoby on Sunday, I would do that. And again, we explained all 3 of these guys have their own upsides in a way. Watson, touchdown upside. Mooney, potential volume upside. Jacoby, you'd have to watch for if BTJ is hurt. CC, if it helps, my running backs are JT, Rico, and Brees. So Genty will probably be my flex. Does this change anything? I don't think it does, CC. So when I go back up, when we go back up to that trade, and you said, Amon-Ra and Genty for CD. You don't necessarily need Genty, but he is a potential safer play in week 17. So if you make it to your fantasy playoffs, I think that he's going to have a good matchup there. And like I said, I don't think that Amon-Ra is going to have a bad game week 17 against Minnesota or week 16 against the Steelers. And I don't think that CD is going to have a bad game either. So you're getting a little bit of the juice in case Rico or Brees get hurt. And I like that. I think that's a little bit of a nice kind of bonus to have. JC, do I start Woody Marks tonight against Buffalo or A.J. Brown against Dallas? The other wide receivers are Puka, Rice, Franklin on bye, and Chase suspended. Other running backs are Dowdle, Taylor, and Benson. So I'm assuming you're starting Dowdle and Taylor. I'm going to start from there, and I'm going to assume that you're starting Dowdle and Taylor, which I think you should be. I think that Dowdle and Taylor are smash starts. So we're talking about a flex here. And for me, while the matchup could potentially be an elite matchup for A.J. Brown, just take this into consideration, guys. It's like Dallas does not have a tremendous secondary. A.J. Brown is not projecting to have a great game. But there is a framework. There is a world where this game is hyper competitive, and A.J. Brown could have 11 targets. What he does with those targets, who knows? He could have a 31-point game like he had against Minnesota. He could have a 3-point game where he had 3 targets for 13 yards. Woody Marks is a fantastic play, just strictly based off of the numbers. A.J. Brown, a great play based off of the numbers as well. But situations are important, and there is a way that they don't have to use A.J. Brown to win this game. Woody Marks, however, is absolutely a guy that you could rely on to do a little bit better. Now, the problem you're going to have with Woody Marks is that does he have that elite go get him that Rico Dowdle had against Buffalo, or is he just going to be a safe play? Is he going to get you that 60 yards, 3 targets, whatever? Because there's a world and a universe that you can write that A.J. Brown would be a better play half PPR against Dallas. I still like Woody Marks tonight. But if you don't, A.J. Brown certainly isn't a bad play, but there is a lot of things to go off of there that would push you in that direction to say, maybe not. So I like Woody Marks, but I don't think A.J. Brown's a bad play. Standard league, start 2 wide receivers that have the highest chance to score a touchdown this week. Rice, Igbuka, Higgins, Jettis, or Diggs. Higgins is probably on that list. Burrow coming back potentially, even if Burrow's not back and Flacco plays, Higgins is tops on that list. I know he draws Christian Gonzalez. I know Christian Gonzalez is good, but still, in order to win that game, they're going to give the ball to their playmakers, and that's going to be great. Rashee Rice. Indianapolis, statistically speaking, this year hasn't been incredible against the pass. So I think that Rice is absolutely another guy that I want to target, especially knowing that over the last 4 games, they've given up about 22 targets to wide receivers in total. So Rice, Higgins, and then if Egbuka's healthy, you absolutely can roll yourself into a Emeka Egbuka. Now, the thing about Emeka Egbuka that might scare you off is the fact that the Rams have slightly played better recently against some wide receivers, but again, 22 total targets for wide receivers that they're going to have. So volume-wise, it's pointing in the direction that Rice, Egbuka, and Higgins are the guys that you want to prioritize this week. Like I said, Diggs is a wild card. Diggs could absolutely score a touchdown, and it's going to be crazy for you. I would tend to lean Rice and Egbuka, but I could absolutely see a world where T. Higgins has 2 touchdowns. Start Yoshivas or Tyrell Shavers this week, Katamari. I'm on Shavers. The reason I'm on Shavers this week is nothing more than simply saying that the volume that they got, the volume that was there for him last week, there's no reason to say that they can't go back to that, especially against Houston as a defense. While Houston projects well defensively against wide receivers, they probably aren't putting a lot of effort into potentially stopping Tyrell Shavers. And I think that when you look at it from that perspective, that it's an interesting play because both Yoshivas and Tyrell Shavers probably have a similar to very same floor. And yeah, Tyrell Shavers had 19 points last week, but he had 1 touchdown, 5 targets. If Josh Allen likes you, Josh Allen's probably going to give you a couple of targets. And there has been games this week where he got 5 targets and he had 6 fantasy points. So while it's nothing crazy, I think that both of them probably have similar floors. And I tend to maybe lean a little bit on Shavers, put him in your wide receiver spot. Don't put him in your flex. But again, like I said, I tend to lean them. But if you don't need to start them and you're comfortable starting Yoshivas, I think both of them project very similarly. So if you'd rather not start somebody on Thursday night, I think then Yoshivas is your guy. All right, guys. So I am out of here. We will see you again on Monday, 3:45 Eastern Standard Time. Good luck. Good luck to everybody this week. We know we're in the playoff push. We want to make the playoffs. We want to make sure that all of this trade discussion, because trade waivers or trade deadline is coming up for a lot of people. So we wish everybody the best of luck. And Josh, if you want to talk more about that trade for Gibbs, put it in the chat of this video, and I'll come back to it either later today or tomorrow to take a look at it. We appreciate the love. Like, follow, subscribe, and we'll see you on Monday. Good luck, everybody.